Welcome to the Turn 3 podcast, your pit stop for Formula One content. I'm Edgar.
I'm Walter. Let's jump right in.
This week we're talking about the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. We've actually written down some facts about the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, the track. Walter, take it away.
Yeah, the track, it's 27 turns. It's 6.2 kilometers, which is 3.8 miles. It's the fastest track in this season, and it was a top speed of 340 kilometers per hour, 210 miles per hour.
Have you ever gone 210 miles an hour?
I think I have gone probably half that. Maybe. Yeah. Don't tell the police, please. Don't let the police know. Let's start with practice.
Okay.
P1 and P2, I think the highlight of P1 and P2 of practice, Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz looked really sick. The track, the team was fighting a fever. He between 97 and 99 degrees, but he did both practices. He was walking to the paddock and he was signing hats, taking pictures with the fans, and he was probably feeling really, really bad. So that's a great sportsmanship.
What a champ, dude. What a champ. I saw they had fans on him, like the ones that they used to cool the engine.
Correct.
I think they were like putting them on him. That's probably because of the fever. It's crazy.
He was fighting over all that day. Then the next day we found out, of course, Carlos Sainz, he has appendicitis. So he was taken to the hospital and he undergoes surgery that day. As far as we know, it was a smooth operation.
There he goes.
That was a smooth operator.
It was a smooth operation.
Good for him. I hope for a speedy recovery.
They brought in Ollie Bearman, 18 years old. He's a Formula 2 driver for Ferrari right now. He's the reserve driver for Ferrari in Formula 1. He was called on Friday for practice 3 and qualifiers. He had like a couple hours before he was sitting in the car, so it was great.
Yeah, dude, kudos to him. I mean, like you said, right? I don't think he had much time to prepare, and I don't know if by 2 hours they mean the hour of practice and the hour of qualies.
No, I think he actually did a pole position for Formula 2 because it's on the same track.
Okay.
Just before the Formula 1.
Sure.
So after he did the pole, like couple hours before practice 3, they told him like you're gonna go into Formula 1. So he had an interview and he said, I didn't even have time to be nervous. I was just right on the job right away.
Good for him. That amount of pressure could fold a lot of people, but just considering how well he did. Let me ask you something, friend. What were you doing at the age of 18?
Whew. I think I was I couldn't even remember.
You
was
weren't
in
driving
high school.
for Ferrari.
No.
I wasn't driving for Ferrari
No.
either, so that's good for him.
Yes,
good for him.
yes,
That's all
yes.
I can say.
It's so amazing, man, because these guys, of course, they start really young in karting and pretty much their whole life they go through that. They just go up in the leagues and stuff like that. I was listening, like I think he was the third youngest driver in Formula 1 ever. I think the other two, it's Max Verstappen and Stroll, that they were younger when they started. And I think he's the youngest driver for Ferrari ever. Also, so pretty exciting for him. No one expected that, of course, and he had a great debut. He had a great debut in Formula 1.
It is so crazy. You wake up one day and you say, I'm going to go race Formula 2 because that's my job.
Mm-hmm.
And then you went to bed that day knowing that not only did you fill in for Carlos Sainz on a Ferrari, you did a great job doing so.
Correct.
He was just outside, what is
Yeah.
it? P11.
He was, yes, correct. P11, and he was just, I think it was 300ths of a second right behind Hamilton.
Yeah.
So he was almost there on Q3. I want to talk about, before the race, I want to point out Carlos Sainz. He was at the paddocks the day of the race, the day after he got into surgery, man. So kudos to him. He's recovering, of course. Do you know how long does it take to recover after appendicitis?
Dude, I honestly don't know. It surprised me that he was there. I fully expect, like, in my mind, what I imagined was that he ran away after they did the surgery and he just snuck out of the hospital. But I don't think that's the case. But that's
Yes.
That's how surprised I was to see him at the race today.
Yes, me too. I wasn't expecting him. I actually got appendicitis when I was 12 years old. I was a kid, but I was in bed for like a week. So it will, of course, it probably different times
Sure.
on medicine and stuff like that. But super surprising, man.
Oh.
Those guys are in the best condition, of course, and they have, in this case, they have pretty good doctors, the best hospitals and stuff like that. So these guys on another level for sure.
That is crazy, and you're right. It has a lot to do, I would imagine, with the condition that they're in, just physically. They're in very good shape physically, and they're very slim and just
Yeah.
slim dudes. So
They're in the peak shape.
They have to be. Yeah, they have to be for the
Physically,
conditions.
mentally, they're prepared. So that can, it shows, right? Like if I was Carlos, I wouldn't be there for sure. I would be in bed, just resting, probably watching the race on TV. But that's why we're not Formula One drivers, exactly.
Have they said anything, or do you think that he'll be in the Australian one?
As far as I heard, it looks that way, but it all depends on how his recovery is going throughout the 2 weeks till Melbourne, of course. So if he doesn't feel probably 90%, 100% ready, probably Ollie is gonna take the race again. But each race that he's not racing is race that he's not making points for himself. It's great for the team is making points with Ollie probably, but Carlos is not making any points in the drivers' championship.
So the constructor doesn't suffer.
They suffer a little bit because probably Carlos could have been better position at the end,
but for Carlos, it's definitely because
correct.
he's not, like you said.
The other thing is like he doesn't have a seat next year yet, so he has to do great in every race, and even though it wasn't his fault, it was out of his hand. It's one race that he cannot prove to the other teams what he's capable of.
That's true. That's something that I hadn't considered, is that he needs to, like, he has something to prove right now, and every opportunity that he doesn't get, every time he's not on the track for a race, it's an opportunity missed for him to be able to show that or to prove that.
We both hope for a speedy recovery, and I'm thinking he's gonna be ready for Melbourne for sure. I hope so.
And if not, Bearman did a great job and he took care of his seat. So.
Super amazing.
Very
Again, in the formation lap, Gasly, we saw a radio call from Gasly where he had some gearbox problems. He stopped for a little bit, or he was behind in the formation lap. He was able to recover the car and made it to start the race, but after one lap he had to retire the car, unfortunately. He was the first retiree from the 2024 season of Formula One.
Oh, was he the first retiree?
He was, yeah. Last weekend there was no accidents. All of them made it through, so this is the first retiree.
Okay, so we go through the formation lap, lights off, and away we go. But something interesting happened before that, right? Just before the last few lights went out, is a jump start by Lando Norris.
That's correct. I think we saw the replay from Russell's POV point of view. And yeah, you could see where Lando actually kind of like jump started, but then stop and then jump started again. So it really didn't give him an advantage, but there was a lot of talk about that. He did not get penalized at the end. It was noted by the track. There was a lot of talk about it after the race. So yeah, some people were saying he needed the penalty.
Yeah, there was a lot of interesting calls by the FIA this race, and we'll obviously get into them. But this one in particular was one of them that I was kind of confused about. Right? It's like you said, he actually didn't get an advantage from doing that, right? From the jump start, because he had to stop again and then start, right? So, but the rule that people are talking about is the jump start and he moves from the grid, and then when he stops again, he's not where he should be. So he's in an incorrect starting position. So it's not so much, I mean, it is because he jump started, but it is because of where he ended up after he broke.
That's correct.
Okay.
At the end of the day, the stewards look at it. They decided not to do a penalty, so that's all that there is to it. There was some overtakes after that, but not much exciting stuff happening. All the way to lap 6, that's when Stroll clipped the wall. broke one of the arms of the tires and then went into the wall.
Yep.
That's to me that's the key moment of the race, because it went into the safety car.
Yep.
And then into the pits where everything changes. So the race, it was kind of like normalizing, I would say, but then after that happened, everything changed. It was free for all pretty much for everybody.
Yeah, and it's actually probably a good time to talk about what the strategies were supposed to be for the race. This track is particularly a one-stop track, meaning just 2 sets of tires for the whole race. Some drivers started on mediums.
Correct.
Some of them
Most of them started on, I think, mediums. Yes.
mediums, and there was just three drivers that started on softs.
Correct.
And so starting on the mediums, the safety car, all of a sudden it presents an opportunity for them to pit and to change their tires and go into hards, right?
Correct.
Because it's almost like
It's a free pit stop.
Yeah.
That's what usually safety cars or the virtual safety cars, that's how the teams take it. The only time I have seen where teams don't go into the pits is when they don't want to lose the position, pretty much.
Yeah.
Other than that, most of the teams usually they go for the pit easy, like free pit stop. In this case, I believe only 4 drivers did not pit stop. All the others, they went into the pit stop. It was Hamilton, Norris, Joe, and Hulkenberg.
Yep. Yeah. And we'll get into it later, but it worked out for some of these drivers, and it didn't for another.
I think Norris and Hamilton, it kind of worked out a little bit.
Yes.
I think Joe and Hulkenberg, I think Joe, it didn't help because also he had a really bad pit stop. So, but Hulkenberg, I think, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And something I want to point out also is I think Stroll also during one of the practices, he hit the wall, the exact same wall. But on practice, nothing happened. He was able to save it. During the race, he wasn't that lucky. Also, I think one of the Williams, I think Sargent was also touched the same wall that they. So from what I heard from the drivers, it seemed like some of the curves are a little bit tricky. They're not really smooth curves, so that's what makes them not calculate the distance as good.
And another thing is this track is a particularly high-speed track, right?
Correct.
Like we mentioned at the
Correct.
beginning, and so there's a lot of these corners, as inconsequential as they may seem, the speeds that you're going through them is probably what makes them way more challenging to go through. I think Alonso actually hit the wall too, and I remember there was a radio where he said like, I kissed the wall, but it's fine, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
or something
yeah.
like that.
He did clip the wall later in I don't remember exactly what lap, but yeah, he had no issues. He was just a little kiss. So,
Yeah. It's funny. It's I was having a laugh when I was watching the race, because Stroll's engineer actually goes, "Can you bring the car back?" And he goes like, "No, I'm in the wall."
Yeah. That was so funny, but yeah, I could understand some of the people at the pit stop. They're looking at the data, the telemetry, everything like that. They're not looking probably at the camera of where their car is. But yeah, it was a little bit funny. I'm glad that Lance is okay. Of course, I think it was a big hit. He was going super fast and he stopped right away. So I'm glad he's okay. Probably a little bit out of breath, but other than that, he looked okay.
I mean, again, we kind of get into this whole like, it's sort of scary, like to see these crashes and it must be, as the driver for these cars, like it must be a scary thing to be in there. But we go back, the FIA has been doing a really good job of keeping the driver safe, whether it be through, car regulations or just in general, like the rules that they impose for the races. So a lot of these guys, like they'll take crashes that look really ugly on TV, but they're safe, and I'm very glad that they are.
Correct. I think the FIA has been doing changes every season and just getting as much information as they can and putting the safety of the drivers and the people and the staff as a first priority. So that's great.
Kudos to them.
After the crash, of course, we went into everybody pits up pretty much. I want to point out Red Bull, they double stack, of course. Max went in first, then Checo. The pit stop were great, other than the release for Checo. there was a unsafe release because we saw that after there was a penalty, 5-second penalty for Checo because it wasn't his fault. The team was the one at fault. They released him into Alonso. It was a little bit dangerous. The stewards said so. So yeah, plus 5 seconds to Checo on the race, which at the end of the day, it didn't matter for him. But either way, they need to work on that for sure.
And I'm actually going to ask you a question about that. So the release for Checo, the team tells him when to go and he just goes. Is that how that works?
Correct. Because he's not looking at the other drivers coming into the pit stop. He's just worrying about like, I need to go. That's all they thinking. So yeah, it depends. It's on the team to release them.
Speaking of penalties, K-Mod got one for causing a collision on lap 10.
That's correct. I think I saw it. He squeezed Albon. I think it was Albon into the wall a little bit. There was a little bit contact. I think Albon got some damage. Magnussen got some damage too after that incident. He got a 10-second penalty, I believe. Okay. I think I heard that this year the rules have been updated just like that. Last year, I think it was a 5-second penalty, and now it's a 10-second penalty. And I believe it's because the drivers were the ones asking for it, because it wasn't fair. Like if you're damaging another driver's race pretty much, and you're not 5-second penalty is not too hard of a punishment. I think they wanted a little bit more, and they went with 10 seconds for this season.
So 10 seconds, you're saying is a way to really make sure that drivers aren't.
The drivers were asking for more, and that's how they gave it to the drivers. I guess they decided like, okay, 5-second penalties is not enough for you guys. We'll go with 10.
I do remember last year those 5-second penalties. So when I heard 10 seconds, I thought that was a bit extreme, but it makes sense now that you're saying that the actual regulation or the rule has changed.
And talking about Magnussen also, there was another penalty for Magnussen, I think later in the race. I don't remember exactly what lap, but he had another 10-second penalty also.
For leaving the track, right?
Leaving the track and gaining an advantage. And if he would have given the place back to Yuki, there was no penalty, but he gave it back. So yeah, the FIA changed the rules. I believe it was last year or 2 years ago, maybe. I think it was last year, but they changed the rule. Like they're not gonna be the ones to tell you to give the position back. That it has to be between the drivers and the teams to be the ones that decided. And if the FIA don't agree with the decision that it was made on track, they're gonna give penalties about it.
Okay, so you're saying, in theory, if I were to overtake you outside of the track, it then becomes up to me as a driver or the team, for example, to say, let's get the position back because we can't afford the 10-second penalty.
That's correct.
But if we said, you know what, we're fine, we'll just take the penalty.
That's correct. And I think we saw an example as a good driver, as a good sportsmanship. It was between Hamilton and Piastri, where he, I think, overtook him twice, but it was illegal moves, kind of like that. So he gave the position back to Hamilton, and they went back to racing pretty much right away.
Yeah. I remember seeing that when he overtook him before he went off track, but then he couldn't stop fast enough. Like he couldn't just take the corner, so he kind of had to go out.
Exactly.
And at that point, that becomes unfair, right?
Exactly.
What a race between those two.
Yeah, that was, I think, one of the highlights for sure of this Grand Prix for sure.
One of the things I noticed is that the McLarens weren't that fast on the straights, but they were very good on the corners.
Correct, and the high speed corners.
High-speed corners, correct.
Yes. I believe McLaren and Mercedes are really, really close. But as you can see in this race in particular, you could see the strengths and the weaknesses of each one. I believe, like you're saying, McLaren are better and faster on the high-speed corners. But of course, Mercedes is faster on the straight line speed. And we could see it right away. Hamilton was in front of Piastri for pretty much the whole race, I believe. And Piastri was doing a great job. He was right behind Hamilton. He was in the slipstream. He had DRS and was not able to overtake him. So you could see the speed of the Mercedes in the straight lines. And then the other way around, you could see Hamilton catching Norris, I think it was. but he was giving him space during the corners, I believe. I don't know what you thought about that.
Yeah, that is something that I noticed as well, and it's probably just Hamilton's experience, right? He knows exactly what kind of car he's driving, and he knows what car they're driving. And in fact, actually, I think I heard that on the radio, him saying like they're just in a whole different league in the straight. I'm sorry, in the corners.
Correct.
So it's crazy, and I think that's when he was when he finally did pit. He pitted for those soft tires because I think he knew that is the only way that I'm gonna have any shot, right?
Correct. And they were catching up to Bearman at the end of the race. During the race, we could see Bearman right behind Hulkenberg for a little bit. And you could see the experience of Hulkenberg right there. You could see Bearman was doing a great race. He had the faster car, but Hulkenberg used his years of experience in the Haas. He was using the battery at the right moment. Bearman, his first time on the Formula One car, he was barely getting to know the strategies, the setups, and everything. So it took him probably a couple more laps than he wanted to overtook him. But yeah, a great job from Hulkenberg and great job from Bearman too.
Like you said, right? Hulkenberg, just years of experience. He's done this, a few times in the past, and this is Bearman's first time, right? So, and it's funny, there was a radio where he was even saying like he's super slow, but he still couldn't pass him, right?
That's what I was thinking when that radio message came on, and he's like, "Well, he's really slow," and on my head is like, "Well, why don't you pass him?"
Yeah, exactly. The same thing went through my head. I was like, if he's so slow, then take it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it is exactly what you're saying, right? It is the experience. And Hulkenberg, it's like he had his elbows out. He said, "You're not going anywhere." And so it was really impressive to see, just like you said, the years of experience and how much that matters in a sport like this, right?
That's correct. And I want to point out Haas team. They did a great job. I don't know if you could see. Unfortunately, Magnussen had, of course, the 20 plus seconds penalties, but he actually backed up. I don't know if you saw, but he backed up, I think, 4 or 5 cars. He was going slow, but he was just, it was the Haas train pretty much. And that gave Hulkenberg enough time to be able to pit and not lose position to those guys. So, and they were able to get the P10, so 1 point in the Constructor Championship for Haas, which is something that those teams need a lot. If you think about it, we already know who are the top 5 teams, which are pretty much all the points in every Grand Prix. So whenever Stroll crash, that's all of the other teams were like, that's a point available. So we're gonna go for it. And in this case, Haas had the better strategy from all of them, and Hulkenberg took that one last point.
Yeah, and at the end of the year, when it's a constructors championship, right? Sometimes that's the difference. 1 point is the difference between being, P7 or 8 or whatever.
Correct, and we're talking about millions of dollars for this team. So yeah, they're fighting for each point. So after 50 laps for the 2024 Grand Prix, Max Verstappen takes the 56th win of his career with Red Bull. Of course, Checo P2, so another P1, P2 for the team, second one of this season. I believe that's gonna be what we are going for this season, unless I'm hoping for Ferrari to bring some upgrades to be a little bit more competition between them. But right now, that's the way it's gonna look for the rest of the season. I think Red Bull is in a league of his own pretty much, and Ferrari second.
Yeah, and something to note, is Checo did have that 5-second penalty at the end of the race, and even then he was still held on to his P2, which is it's, again, I go back to what I said in the last episode, right? This is what I expected to see from him last year, and whatever reason he wasn't able to deliver this kind of performance last year is beyond my knowledge. But I'm very happy to see him be there because, again, we are Checo fans, right? This is where we want him, and we appreciate Max's talent, and so we know that is P1 is going to be Max's spot throughout the whole season.
Yeah, we know the only way that Checo is gonna take probably one win is if there's like a mechanical issue or there's a crash or something like that. But other than that, if there's no issues during any race, it's gonna be a P1 and P2 for Red Bull with Max and Checo, like that.
Yeah, and I'm Again, like I said last time, it's as boring as that may be for just in general for people who are watching the sport, or maybe for people who aren't fans of Red Bull or either of the two drivers. I'm here for it. I do like the idea of that. Again, there's plenty of action going on in the midfield.
Yeah.
That we can focus in on. So this was one of those excellent examples. This race was an excellent example of how much action there can be and how interesting a race can be in the midfield.
Correct.
And how boring that those first two spots could be.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it talks about the great job that Red Bull is doing as a team, the drivers, the people that created the car. So it is kind of boring, but at the end of the day, it's like they're doing the best. So that's what all of the other teams are going for. And hopefully during this season, we're gonna see all of the other teams getting upgrades and getting closer and closer. But I know for sure Red Bull also is not gonna be like is gonna do nothing and let them catch up. They're also gonna bring upgrades. They're always striving for the best.
And Adrian Newey is always going to be outshine the rest of the engineers. Is that
I get right now that it looks that way.
I had sort of an idea to make maybe the rest of the season more interesting for people who are not Red Bull fans. Is we give the championship to Max already.
Yeah.
And then he can go home and just enjoy a year off.
I would think that I think everybody would be happy about that.
Well, everybody except Max.
I think he wouldn't mind. He would probably be racing on the video games, iRacing. I don't know if you know. I think I heard that during this weekend he was iRacing till morning, till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And he's still during practice during Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and he still won everything. So that no one can stop this guy.
Nobody can stop him, not even himself. Dude, when I was in college, I was doing that, but that was me when I was in my early 20s.
Yeah. He's 25 doing the same thing. So it was a P1 for Max Verstappen, P2 for Checo, P3 Charles Leclerc. He did a great job for Ferrari. Of course, Carlos out of commission for this weekend. Ollie Bearman, I think it was probably the highlight of this week, but Charles Leclerc, great job also. He got his first podium of the season, and I'm pretty sure Ferrari is gonna be the number 2 team to beat this season.
I agree. I do actually have to say, I'm a little worried about Max. He got a Grand Slam last time.
Correct.
And he didn't get a Grand Slam this time, so I think he's slipping, dude. Maybe is he washed?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see on Australia.
Poor guy, dude.
Yeah, he looked really sad after the race, He was like, oh my God. Actually, I think I don't know exactly when, there was an interview. Someone asked him this is your 188th race, and I think it's his 100th podium. And his answer was, oh, that's 88 missed podiums.
Look at this guy.
So he's a funny guy,
He is a funny guy. I saw a statistic today about the most race wins in Formula 1 history, and they're kind of going through the older races and stuff. But so we have Max with his 56th win today, and how that compares to Schumacher. He has 91, I believe, and then Hamilton has 105. That means that if Max doesn't lose a race this season, he's still not going to be there. He's still 20 something shy from being, where Hamilton is.
Yeah, but we're talking about many years from Hamilton. So Max is still, I think, I think he started at 17. So he's 7 years in Formula 1. So he still has time.
Before we move on to the next topic, there was a question in the last video.
Okay.
So I'm gonna read it, and then we can kind of give our thoughts, because I thought it was a great question to bring up in the show. So Eduardo Garza 6306 says, or asks, I've heard rumors that Jos Verstappen, Max Verstappen's father, has issues with Christian Horner and may pressure Max to leave Red Bull. Do you think his performance would be as stellar in another team with another car? Great driver, but Red Bull car and team are a huge part of his success, in my opinion.
That's correct. I would say he's a great driver, and he's probably gonna get the best out of any car he drives. But I do agree with the comment. I believe his success is also hand in hand with the Red Bull team. If you see the statistics, all of his wins are within a Red Bull car. So you can separate one another. I'm pretty sure if for whatever, there's a lot of rumors going around right now with the Red Bull team, but if for whatever reason it breaks up, like Max Verstappen and Red Bull, I don't know if he could find another competitive car and win championship if it's not with Red Bull. That would be my answer.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And just my 2 cents is, I think don't fix what's not broken, right? So if right now you're in the best car, you are the best driver, and you are winning races by, over 10 seconds,
22 seconds.
22 seconds, like last week. This is not the time to start making those kinds of changes, right? So no, I agree with the comment in the fact that he is probably better off staying with Red Bull. As far as like the rumors that there's pressure from his father to join a different team, they're rumors and they're not something that I can confirm nor deny. So I don't know, the extent of it, and I don't think that that's something that until we have evidence and
An official statement.
An official statement, exactly. We can't really get into it, but I agree. I think it's why break what's the perfect formula.
That's correct. Just one last comment that I have, just to close out the day, pretty much, is I believe they got out some renders for the future Saudi Arabia track. I believe it looks awesome, man. It looks like super futuristic. There were some memes about it. It looked like the rainbow track on Mario Kart?
Of course.
So it looks like that pretty much. So we'll see what these guys do. I believe they want to do it in the capital city, and it's gonna be crazy. I saw some some video that they did, and it looks like they're gonna have like a hotel with the bridge in the track with the pool on the top. So it looks really crazy. So I don't know what these guys are doing, but it looks super cool.
That is amazing.
Maybe you could put some pictures so the people can watch it. But yeah, there's a video out there where they show this stuff.
Yeah. Well, actually, we can tell the editor right now to put in some pictures right here, or there, or somewhere.
Editor. The magic of editor.
So I said I was gonna want to do this for every race.
Okay.
Why don't you rate the race?
Oh my god. I'm gonna give it an 8.5.
Oh, you cheater, dude.
I don't think it's a 9, but it was a really good race. So between 8 and 9, of course, 8.5 is my rate.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say 8.5.
I'm sorry.
Gonna change it to 8
next week. You're gonna do it first, so there's no cheating involved,
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, so I'm gonna change mine to 8 because I was gonna say 8.5, but I'm gonna change it to 8. So we won't be filming another thing this next week. It'll be 2 weeks from now when we move over to the Australian Grand Prix. Any thoughts on that race?
It's gonna be a great race for sure. It's gonna change a lot from this week. I'm not really sure which team is gonna be the best on that race. I believe, of course, Red Bull is gonna be first. Ferrari second. I still not sure who's gonna be better between Mercedes and McLaren, but it's gonna be an exciting race. I would give you my podium maybe for next race.
Let's hear it.
It's gonna be super crazy, Max Verstappen's gonna.
What?
Yes.
One. Like he's
Max
gonna be P1.
Yeah.
You're crazy, Joe. I don't know how you're.
I know.
Okay.
If Max Verstappen P1, let's move on from that. Checo Perez P2, and I'm gonna give it to Charles Leclerc P3. So it's gonna look exactly the same as this week.
As today. You wanna hear my podium?
Yeah. We'll go for it.
P1 will be Logan Sargent.
Sounds
reasonable.
credible.
No, I couldn't even say it with a straight face, dude. No, yeah. So P1 Max Verstappen, there's just no stopping him. P2 I want Checo there. I think P3 Carlos Sainz.
Oh, that I like that.
I think he makes a recovery. I think he shows up to the Australian Grand Prix, and I think he takes the podium. That's it for us, guys. Thanks for joining us on the Turn 3 podcast. We'll see you in 2 weeks for the Australian Grand Prix.
Thank you very much. We'll see you in the next race.